Thanks for joining me today, Lori Goldman, on For the Sake of the Argument. Our guest was Christina Hines, who's running for the 10th Congressional District, and she had a lot of interesting things to say. So I hope you'll get involved, learning more, hearing from these people that are running, and from the people that we've already elected. And you can do that by following For the Sake of the Argument and telling your friends about it on all social media platforms. Thank you. Christina Hines, thanks for coming today for the Sake of the Argument. I met you back when you ran against creepy Pete Lucido for Macomb County prosecutor, and I've really admired and liked you ever since. I think you ran kind of a safe campaign against him. I'm hoping that now you're running for Michigan's 10th Congressional District, that you're going to not be so safe. You're going to step out of your lane a little bit. And I'd like you to give us some information about what is the 10th district like and why are you running for this congressional seat there?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Lori.
Of course.
And at some point today, I'm going to tell all of your listeners the advice that you gave me the very first time that you and I got breakfast together.
Good, because I forgot.
I know. So here we will go. It's going to be so fun. But I love the first question. I mean, Michigan's 10th district is all of southern Macomb County. So, Warren, East Point, Roseville, all the way up to Shelby Township. And then it's also including Rochester Hills. So it's about 85% Macomb County, 15% that Oakland County portion. And we are a very diverse district. I know people across the rest of the state, they think of Macomb County, they think of, one specific type of person. This district is really diverse. We have a lot of different immigrant communities. We have a vibrant Ukrainian community, Bengali, Hmong, like Chaldean. It's such a diverse community. And it's also, you can imagine from East Point to Rochester Hills, like different values sometimes and different income levels. And so it's a really special place. It's a place I grew up in Warren, Michigan, went through the public schools there. And now my husband and I are raising our 3 kiddos in Warren as well. And I have the cutest kids in the race, if I do say so myself. So, I have the only kids in the race. I don't just throw other people's kids under the bus, but.
Okay.
Yes.
Glad you clarified.
Yes.
How did running for Macomb County prosecutor, that race, do you think prepared you to hold a seat in Congress?
Yeah, I think 2 things. The reality right now is that we need someone that can win the seat, right? Like if you ask any Dem, their top priority is winning because we have a president that ignores the rule of law and is constantly hurting American citizens and people across the world now, right? So we need someone that can actually win.
Well, I would want to interject here.
Yeah.
We do need somebody that's going to win, a Democrat, but also a Democrat that's not going to be a pussy when they get there.
Yeah.
So that's important too.
Yeah. So let's talk about both of those in turn, right? First of all, I can win the seat, and the prosecutor's race really prepared me for that, right? I was the highest performing Democrat on the ballot, with the exception of our incumbent sheriff, Tony Wickersham. I outperformed Carl Marlinga, who was our congressional nominee. I outperformed Kamala Harris, and almost 10,000 people that voted for Donald Trump switched over to vote for me, which is huge in
Impressive.
a race that, thank you, in a race that Carl, when he lost in 22, he only lost by 1,600 votes. So it's really important. I think that race prepared me to be able to win. And the reason it prepared me to be able to win is because I knocked over 6,500 doors in this district. We had hundreds of volunteers on that prosecutor's race. And we united a Democratic Party in Macomb County that had been fractured for decades. Like, I'm talking people throwing fists on convention stage fractured. So we united a party, and people, I think, really, believe in me and they want to see me succeed. So that's kind of that. We need somebody that can win because the stakes are incredibly high right now. But that second part is also true, right? It's not just the prosecutor's race that prepared me to be in Congress. It's the fact that for 10 years, I was a sexual assault and child abuse prosecutor who put predators that were molesting kids behind bars, who handled human trafficking cases across southeastern Michigan. I have been preparing to wrangle corrupt criminals for my entire career. And then I'm also, a mom of 3 little ones that knows how to wrangle toddlers. And between those two categories, that's most of Congress. So I'm ready to get there and start handling business on day one.
Well, I know holding people accountable in your job as a prosecutor is not easy, and it's commendable that you did that for so long. But what does accountability look like when we're talking about people, primarily men still, in suits sitting in Congress? How would you work that there?
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up because only 1 in 4 people in Congress are women, which is definitely a problem.
Definitely sickening.
And I say this a lot on the trail that only 7% of people in Congress are moms with kids under the age of 18. And if you look at what is happening in this country right now and how working families are struggling like hell to get by, we need more moms in Congress. We need more people that actually know what it's like to go to the grocery store, to fill up a gas tank, to have to pay for childcare. September of 2025 was the first month in 10 years that I did not have a childcare payment. So we need parents in Congress. We need people, for example, it's one of my big passions is fighting back against AI and these big tech companies that are coming into our community, that are, ignoring workers' rights, that are ignoring environmental protections, and then that are intentionally addicting our kids to social media. Like, we need parents that are actually seeing the problems and that are going to try to work together to fix them. And so I think there's a lot of amazing candidates that are running across the country, and I'm really hopeful that 2026, it's not just going to be my victory, but it's going to be a victory for regular people that are running for Congress that can take out some of these millionaires that have absolutely no sense of what's going on in regular working families anymore.
Millionaires, billionaires, and zillionaires, yes. Yeah. All right, let's switch here. I'm going to have you walk on the wild side here if you're up for it.
All right, what are we doing?
Healthcare is a major concern for people. I know it is for me, especially with premiums skyrocketing. What would you do in Congress to make healthcare cheaper for Michiganders? Like, what would Medicare for all look like in your ideal world?
Yeah. I know you and I have talked about this a little bit, but for me, I come to healthcare with a challenging story. So my mom was chronically ill my whole life. And I grew up, going to doctor's appointments with her at different points in my life, like visiting her for weeks on end in hospitals and rehab centers.
Sorry to hear that.
So for me, I grew up with my dad worked for Ford and different auto suppliers, and we had insurance. But even within that context, my mom still really struggled to get treatment. And my dad spent hours on the phones with insurance companies trying to, figure out why these bills were wrong. And then, I was 27 when my mom passed away, and I, held her hand when we took her off life support. And any American that has had that story, that knows what it's like to live with somebody that's constantly sick and constantly going to the doctor, who knows how time-consuming and expensive it is, knows that our system right now is entirely broken. And I have talked to so many people, particularly over the last couple months, because premiums are skyrocketing. I mean, I have talked to more people in the last couple months than I have in my whole life that have said, we are choosing to not have insurance at all. And that should never be the case. I genuinely believe that every single citizen should be able to go to their doctor. I don't think that that's a wild thought.
It's not, but I hear this from a lot of people running for office and already in office. But what the fuck can we do about it? We're looking for answers.
Yeah.
And I'm not putting you on the spot here, but how can we get off of this telling our stories, which are real, complaining about the costs, which are real? What can we do about it?
Yeah. I mean, we need to have legislation that increases access. Now, here is the issue. We have so many people in Congress that, like I mentioned before, have not touched grass in way too long. When whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you're making millions of dollars, you're, illegally, well, I think that it should be illegal, engaging in stock trading while you're a member of Congress.
It is illegal.
But I think that when we have more people that have actually lived those types of experiences and who actually have to pay for healthcare for their families, we are going to see those changes. And everything that I think about is, first of all, how are we reducing costs? right? Because there's hospital systems, there's prescriptions, there's insurance companies. We have to look at this holistically. How are we reducing costs? How are we improving quality? Because anything that we pass needs to include how are we not just increasing technology, but like safe staffing for nurses and making sure that when you go to the doctor, you get more than a 5-minute visit because they have to turn over patients like incredibly quickly.
This will all help tune up a system that's in place, but it's still a broken system. Do you support Medicare for all?
I support universal health care,
Okay.
and I think that we can get there in multiple ways. So that's why when I talk about how are we actually, expanding access, there are multiple countries that do make sure every single person has health care. And I know that it's important, like, to be honest with you, one thing that's really concerned me is that right now we have a president that has tried to reduce access to abortion, that's tried to, prevent people from being able to get transition surgeries. And if we have a healthcare system that's entirely government run, will we still have access to those things if we have another crazy person as president? So that's why I'm concerned, and I really want to take the time to work with everybody to make sure that we can have a great system where everybody gets to go to the doctor, where everybody gets the medical care that they need and deserve. That is the system that I'm fighting for, and I'm going to do anything and work with anyone to make that happen.
Okay. On your website, you directly call out billionaires like Elon Musk for meddling in our politics. And by the way, your website is informative, but it's a little blah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
all right.
I think you got to spice it up, make it a little more, compelling.
Okay.
A little bit.
I appreciate
Just
it.
as your friend, I'm telling you that. And I'm saying that off air for you right now. No,
Okay.
I'm really on air. Okay. What would you do as a member of Congress to limit the influence of billionaires in elections and governments?
Yeah. I want to get all money out of politics, number one. So I'm not taking any corporate PAC money. And I have now seen firsthand how absolutely insane it is that all of these candidates are spending all of this time raising money instead of talking to their constituents. And so we need to get money out of politics. And that's going to be a huge priority of mine in Congress.
How would you do that in Congress?
We need to build a coalition to pass legislation to get money out of politics.
So you'd work across the aisle if you had to?
I will work with anyone.
Okay.
And I mean that for everything. Because truly, these days of like all of this partisan fighting, I am a Democrat. My values align with the Democrats. But whether we are talking about the stock trading or getting money out of politics or protecting kids, there are so many issues we should be coming together and working on. And I'm going to work with anybody to get that type of stuff passed.
What corporations stand out most to you that are doing this, meddling in politics and putting their finger on the scale?
Right now, it's definitely these tech companies. If you look at the big, beautiful bill in the first round, there was a regulation that would have limited any states and prohibited any state from being able to pass regulations limiting AI. And that is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you firsthand as a prosecutor. At one point, I was an office's expert on child pornography. And I can tell you that AI is having a huge impact on child pornography and the ability to create that. I mean, it's going to have so many disastrous impacts if we don't put up guardrails for it. I'm not saying that we can't, improve technology. And frankly, AI has done a lot of good when it comes to being able to come up with new technologies in healthcare, right? But we have to put guardrails up. And I think the United States should be a leader around the world in trying to put those guardrails up. And instead, you have these companies that are coming in and convincing politicians, demanding those politicians that we don't put any laws up. And that is insane. So that's one area right now where I'm really concerned about.
Yeah, talking about AI, all over this past holiday, I saw a bunch of middle-aged broads like me using AI to put themselves in a sparkly Santa dress.
Did you do it?
No, I'm against it. I think it's stupid.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody should do
We'll
it.
get you a real life dress.
Yeah, no, I think it's crazy. And what you're saying about it being used in child pornography and all the wrong things, we're only feeding into that when we are compliant and complicit.
Yes.
Also on your website, you mention fighting the fentanyl crisis through increased border security.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, come on, border security, is there an issue at the border now with all that's been done? legally and illegally through the Trump administration? Are you really worried about that?
I
Border
am.
security?
So I am still worried about that, yeah. And I want to be clear, fentanyl is still coming up through Mexico. And so we do still have a problem. The other area that I would say, it's not just border security there, but we have, basically like fake versions of fentanyl that are coming in from China as well. And that's an increasing issue that we're going to see more of in the United States right now. We're still barely even testing for those like fake versions of the drugs. And I mean, the crisis right now, the fentanyl crisis has been slowly getting better. And trust me, like I will tell you, I believe in holistic care, right? So it's not just the fact that we've got drugs coming in. We have to get people off of drugs here in America, and we do that in holistic ways that I really do believe in. But we do still have a crisis. If we have drugs that are coming into this country from other countries, we need to try to stop it.
What does increased border security mean to you? What would you have them do at the border?
So remember, I know that this, I almost wanted to say a couple years ago, and that's because the Trump administration makes every month turn into a year. But, we had a bipartisan immigration bill that Trump, prevented from getting across the finish line. But what we really do need to do is we need to figure out our whole immigration system. We need to come together. This is a Republican and Democrat issue. We need to come together and we need comprehensive immigration reform. And that includes making sure that we have enough judges and people to actually handle folks that are going to come in across the southern border. And that I don't anticipate that necessarily ebbing. There's going to continue to be problems in Latin America, and people are going to want to come to the United States. This is an amazing country.
Less and less, I think.
I wouldn't be running for Congress if I didn't genuinely believe that we are going to make things better and we are going to be a leader in the world, that people want to come here for our democracy and our freedom.
Would you work with the Trump administration on his mass deportation and border security efforts?
I cannot say I would. Here is the thing. Immigration reform and sending ICE illegally into communities, ICE people that are wearing masks,
right?
I'd never support that, and I would never work with any administration that's doing that. I worked alongside law enforcement my entire career, and the police officers that I worked alongside none of them that I know are supporting this. The idea that you're going to, be so afraid of your own citizens that you're going to put a mask on, because you don't trust that people aren't going to come at you, that's insane to me. And it's insane to a lot of law enforcement. So I'm not going to support anything like that. I'll also just point out the fact that what is happening right now with these deportations is straight up illegal. And I would love to see a world where Republicans actually follow the law, because that's not happening right now. We have people that are being deported, citizens of our country that are being deported. We have people that have some sort of legal status or otherwise are not allowed to be deported, that are being held illegally in detention facilities, and that they are trying to deport to countries.
Private detention facilities for profit.
Yes.
Yeah, they're even taking people off of buses that are heading over the border that are self-deporting. They're taking them off the buses because they need to fill the cells in their private, it's sickening.
And there's been plenty of news stories about the things that are happening in those facilities and women who are not getting, prenatal care. And there's a million different issues with this. So I think that we need to separate these issues, right? There's comprehensive immigration reform that needs to happen. But what this administration is doing is illegal.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. At the start of the new year, Trump conducted, and if every elected politician isn't talking about this and this only right now, I'm very sorry for you and for us. He conducted an illegal regime change operation in Venezuela. What's your position on this? And should the Trump administration be running Venezuela? I can't believe that's a fucking question I'm even asking.
I know. So no, the United States government should not be running Venezuela. And I also can't believe that that's a statement that I'm making here today. But no, the United States should not be running Venezuela. I put this out on our socials because I think that the it should not surprise anyone that Donald Trump broke the law again, right? That should not be surprising to anyone. He's a convicted felon. He's been breaking the law since he took office again, right? So that should not necessarily surprise anyone. But I think that the thing that we have to remember here too is that there are people that are genuinely struggling in our communities here at home. And I talked a little bit about how diverse our district is. You know, I've knocked doors all across the district, and in my city in Warren, we have, you know, these mobile home parks across southern Warren, and I've knocked on these doors, and people are genuinely struggling to even keep a roof over their head. They're struggling to put groceries on the table. And the reality is that for people in our country, kind of regardless of whether you think it was legal or you don't think it was legal, whether you voted for Trump, you didn't vote for Trump, we have to focus on the people here in our country. We should not be engaging in regime change. We should not be engaging in another endless war. We have real problems at home that Donald Trump promised he was going to fix and has done nothing to do so. So what I would really like to point out to a lot of people that, again, we have to win is that Donald Trump keeps breaking these promises, and he keeps doing so in illegal ways and ways that are going to sink money
And
into.
Congress is not standing up.
Yeah.
I not just the Republicans, and I know that we're in the minority, but what is Congress going to do? Would you vote in favor of a war powers resolution in Congress to stop these kinds of operations, not just in Venezuela, but elsewhere? And having asked you that, there's already laws that require congressional approval, but he circumvents that.
Right.
So I don't even know what the fucking point is. What would you do? Would you vote in favor of these war powers resolutions?
Yeah, I mean, Congress needs to take back a lot of power. If you look at how the Constitution was written, they talk about Congress first, and Congress should have the most power. It's separate branches of government, and we're supposed to be checking each other, but Congress is directly representing the people, right? I mean, they're supposed to be a major check, and over decades, it's not just Trump. It's over decades, Congress has been laying down and giving power away, ceding its power. And so we need people in Congress that are willing to take back the role that Congress is supposed to be playing and actually get work done, like genuinely get work done for the American people. I will continue to say this. There are people suffering here in our communities, and Congress is doing nothing to help them.
How old is your oldest child?
He's 10.
All right, so in 8 years,
Yeah.
your child will be eligible to be drafted into the Army or any of those services. And do you know if we enter a World War III, if this keeps going on, we will be in a World War III. And my kids that are already of that age, and in that short time, your children will be available for them too, for the war machine. It's important that we nip this in the bud now. This nation building that we're doing, this invasion scourge that we're on. So coming back to Michigan, before I have a heart attack here, another major concern for our pocketbooks is energy costs because of what we were talking about, because of AI. What would you do in Congress to regulate AI and ensure our energy costs don't increase because of it and all the other ills that you talked about previously?
Yeah. So there's a couple things here. And for example, AI is going to open a lot of doors, right? It's going to open a lot of new opportunities, and that's a good thing. Technology is a good thing. I never want to come off as being anti-technology because I'm not. And that's progress that is good and should happen. The reality is that this is happening so fast and with no guardrails. And what I have seen is something similar that happened with the internet, right? Like, I'm a millennial. I grew up, learning about the internet when I was a kid. I got my first cell phone when I went away to college. I grew up kind of adapting to this. But what I have also seen as a prosecutor is that we totally fell short and fell behind when it came to the internet. And, what the ills in society that used to happen in real life, a lot of them moved online. And we never did anything to stop it. And so now I see AI as that, but, turbo loaded. Like, we are going to see people hurt across every single industry. Imagine, we get rid of all of our truck drivers because AI is driving our trucks. Just because technology can improve does not mean that we have to use it. And to relate this back for a minute to what you were just talking about and a potential, World War III or any other type of like foreign invasion. I mean, we have to build a strong middle class. We have to build a strong country here at home for, our protections abroad as well. And I think that this is something, I admire how Alyssa Slotkin talks about this. We have to be able to build chips here. We have to have a strong middle class if we want to be able to defend ourselves. The next types of war that I think we enter into are going to be, taking out our energy grid. They're going to be getting directly involved in disinformation online. It's not just the traditional ways that we think of when we see like World War II movies. That's a time of the past. And so we need to be, using technology to our advantage, and we do need to be engaging in that. And I think we need to be a leader on the world stage when it comes to AI, but we also need to be a leader in terms of what are the regulations? How are we going to protect ourselves? How are we going to protect people and their privacy rights online? There's a whole host of things that we need to talk about that are about how are we protecting people now and in the future.
I don't think anyone's talking about it, though, are they?
I know. That's why I'm running for Congress.
All right. We're going to do the lightning round.
All right. When do I get to talk about our story, the story when we met?
Oh, you can say it right now.
Okay. All right.
We don't stand on formality here.
So the first time that we talked, we actually, I think, talked on the phone. All right. And Vaughn Derderian was like, Christina, you have to call Lori Goldman. She is this powerhouse in Oakland County. You've got to talk to her. You're going to love her. So I called you and I was like, I got your number from Vaughn and was wondering if you'd like grab a coffee with me and like go out on a date. And so we ended up getting breakfast actually in Ferndale. And the entire time, like you met me, and I think in this breakfast or brunch or whatever we were doing, you said maybe 10 times, "You are so beautiful." Like genuinely, it was like a first date. You told me 10 times that I was so beautiful and how like, you're this pretty young woman and, you can definitely win this race and we need you. And we talked about Pete Lucido a long time because obviously he's the worst.
Who is not beautiful.
And you were like, Christina, I mean, two faces compared to each other. But it was, you gave me, this advice about, being real and being who I was, but also being, not being worried about being pretty. I'm not kidding. This is actually like something that can hurt you. A lot of people have told me, you should try to look more frumpy. You don't want to. I've had people tell me, you don't want to offend husbands' wives because they think that you're too pretty and their husband shouldn't be talking to you. Like genuinely, I've had people tell me that. But you were just like, you're so pretty. Like you're so smart. You're going to do such a good job. And I literally remember, like, I think about that a lot because anytime somebody tells me, you should be more frumpy, I think, well, Lori told me I didn't have to be.
No, you don't. You have to be yourself, and that's who you are, a genuine person.
So that breakfast meant a lot to me for how you encouraged me. But the other thing was I really loved hearing about your story, which I feel like is something that you never share on the pod because you are this amazing woman who, frankly, has gone through a decent amount of adversity and then overcame it. And now, I don't know if you guys know this, but she's a real estate agent. So if you ever need to buy or sell a house, you should call Lori.
I'm not paying you for that.
No. But beyond that, like you've recreated your life and now you're this, firebrand. And so, I mean, if I can ask you a question now, I'd love for you to just share some of your story. Ahead. Tell us, a little bit about the adversity that you've overcome and who you are and, why you're even here trying to change America because you're amazing.
Hey, I have 4 kids, and having kids initially meant keeping up with the Joneses, making sure they had all the things that they needed and more. And then you start to see what the world is doing and that you're sending your children to be adults in a world that's really pretty crazy. And so that's why I started 10 years ago, Femmes for Dems, and have been an organizer ever since. And it's important to me that more people wake up. I was very old when I woke up. I was in my mid-50s. I hope people can wake up sooner than I did and start caring about who's running, what they stand for, and trying to make our world a better, equitable, safer place for our children, ourselves, and all the generations to come. And yeah, I've gone through a shitstorm, even in the last few years. Yeah. But you know what? I come from a steel town, E-course, and this is our saying, the same fire that melts the steel forges it stronger.
Yeah.
And so I like to think I was forged stronger because of the adversity.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking.
I think you definitely were. You are forged very strong. And I think that the thing that's really beautiful is that you don't like keep it all for yourself, is that you do actually share it with other people. Because like I said, you have inspired me, and I know you're inspiring a lot of people to be who they authentically are. And that's really important right now.
God willing. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So we're going to do the lightning round, and you're going to give me quick answers, and you're not going to think about it. You're just going to burp them out. Are there any cases from your time as prosecutor that keep you up at night?
Yes. Do you want me to tell you now?
Give me a quickie.
Going back to the fentanyl crisis, I had two parents that were addicted to fentanyl. They had actually killed one of their children. They had 8 children together. One of them died, but by the time that they had kind of escaped custody in Georgia and come up here, they were still addicted, and they had been starving their 4-year-old and 1-year-old. And so by the time that the police got there, the 1-year-old was tied up to a bed.
Wow.
And I remember this body cam footage like I'll never be able to forget it, of this officer going in, seeing this baby, and starting to go down and grab it. And then you see him back up because you can see that her feet are literally about to fall off from having been tied for what the doctors ended up saying must have been 10 days or so. And then you just see him go up and like swoop her into his arms. And it is a testament to our law enforcement and how hard they work and how traumatic their jobs are. But it's stuff that I'll never forget. And that was an 18-month-old that ended up weighing, I think they said 11 pounds.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Did they go to jail for a long time?
They did. We made sure of it.
Yeah. And what case, as you know, during your time as prosecutor, are you most proud of?
I have, I have a lot of cases that I'm really proud of, but I think that one, it's a little bit of a long story, but it was, the resentencings that happened for juveniles. There were these 2 defendants, and one of them was 18 but was less culpable, and one of them was 17 and was more culpable. And after 45 years in prison, the 17-year-old had been resentenced under the U.S. Supreme Court cases, and the 18-year-old who was less culpable was still sitting in there. And this is before the Michigan Supreme Court extended that to 18-year-olds. And so, I got to, my boss was Ellie Savitt at the time, and I went to him and it's like, I think that we should, try to initiate a process for resentencing because this is an injustice. And he agreed. And so we went forward. We did that before any Michigan Supreme Court case law changed that.
That's amazing. Thank you for that.
Thanks.
Aside from Elon Musk, what other billionaires deserve our disdain? Name a couple.
I'm gonna go a little bit broad here. I'm not sure we should have billionaires. It's a hot take, but here's the thing. First of all, we need to increase the federal minimum wage. We have so many people in this country that are just struggling to get by. And in the meantime, we have all of these billionaires that are sitting that are, in, what was it, the 1970s, we might have had like 5 billionaires, and now we have hundreds and hundreds. I mean, we need to... And okay, I know I'm going to go crazy for a minute. The Social Security Trust Fund is going to run out in 2032. And people have been paying into Social Security their whole careers. And in 2032, that's going to decrease. Their payments will decrease by 25%. And I have at least 25% of the people in our district live exclusively on Social Security. About 50% of them, that's about 90% of what their income is. And so we have people, this is not a matter, like I think people, particularly on the right, they think, Democrats are always exaggerating. It is not an exaggeration to say that this is a matter of life and death for people.
Yes.
People live off of this. And then we have all of these billionaires that are just taking advantage of all these loopholes and systems. Why aren't we lifting the Social Security cap and making them pay their fair share?
That's right, because their contribution to Social Security is the same as yours or mine.
Yes, exactly.
It maxes at the same point.
It maxes at the same point.
That is crazy,
Yes.
crazy, crazy.
Yes. So that is why I am all about, build your business, make a good life for yourself. I have no issue with wealth, but my point is we've got all of these billionaires and they're not paying their fair share. And until they're paying their fair share, I'm going to be like, I'm good.
All right. Well, Christina Hines, you better get your beautiful self out there and win this race for the 10th Congressional District.
Thank you.
Make it happen. Thank you for being here on For the Sake of the Argument.
Thank you, Lori. And we'll get you one of those sparkly dresses. We'll show up in person next time like that.
All right. That sounds good. I'll get a girdle.
All right.